Hello, 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 and welcome to Blabbit. How's everyone doing this morning?
Good, Glenn. How are you?
We are doing well. Good to see you, Jason. Good to see you, Glenn.
You as well.
Well, welcome everyone to episode 5-1, the Big 51 here on Blabbit. Before long, we're going to be at the speed limit.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who may not have been here before, we'll do some quick introductions. My name is Glenn Ingram. I've been working in teaching, coaching, managing, and training people in the sales industry for the better part of the last 2 decades. Just trying to help people become better speakers and, more importantly, better listeners. Paul, how about you?
Well, thank you, Glenn. Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Paul Geiger. I am a public speaking coach and presentation expert out of New York City. And I help people clarify their message, clarify their storytelling, clarify their delivery, whatever it might take, so that others believe in their authenticity and commitment to the words that they're speaking. Now, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Mr. Jason Frazell. Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm Jason Frazell. I'm a performance and leadership coach, and I specifically work with startup co-founders and entrepreneurs. And I'm also a personal brand strategist at a great company called Brand Builders Group. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about all that today. So that's what I do.
Well, excellent. Then that brings me to my first question, Jason. So in talking to a new entrepreneur, someone ready to start a business in August 2021, what type of advice or what would you say to someone if I said, Jason, I want to start a business now?
Why?
Why do I want to start a business? It seems like a lot of people probably are starting businesses because they don't like the situation they're in right now, whether it's to go back to work, to do something like that. I think most people are probably being motivated out of their current position and think, why don't I just go work for myself?
Yeah, I think, and when I ask the why, it's not with judgment, it's the curiosity is what's the why? If it's like, hey, I want to work for myself so I can make a ton of money. Mm-hmm. Say statistically, that's not going to happen when you first start. Mm-hmm. So it'd be like, what's the why? And the answer that gives me the most hope or the most excitement is I want to make an impact. I have a thing that I have inside of me that I want to get out in the world. And the way I want to express that is through my company. So whether that be software or with service-based business like some of us have, that's the thing I'm usually looking for. And then from there, you can attach the thing that is going to be challenging to get there. So yeah, that's the question I would ask. The advice would be, you don't have to know how it's going to go. You just have to have like the vision for what the thing is that you want to do and not be attached to it being exactly that. I think you'd be okay.
Okay. So is it really a matter of, have you determined what you're going to bring to the party? In other words, what is the value that you're bringing? And I know that's a very loose term, but we know what it means in terms of being able to promote yourself, because your value varies depending on who you are promoting your business to, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're talking about is you need to have a market product fit of some type, whether you're a service-based business just providing, trading time for money, or you've got something out in the marketplace that's a product. You need to have that. You see this a lot where entrepreneurs, co-founders have this thing that they want to do that's going to change the world. But the thing that they want to change the world with, actually the world is not interested in changing that thing. And that's where the startup kind of goes. Product market fit. So yeah, I think it's like getting clear about what it is outside of your own ego that like, oh, it's my idea. I came up with this thing. So now this is going to be the thing that's going to change the world. And we're all like, yeah, I think we're good. Whereas like, oh, like Jason needs or Glenn needs something in his life that needs to be improved. Oh, this thing can help you with that. You're willing to pay for that. Or, I just see where a lot of companies, and if you do, I do some angel investing as well. And you read about this when you look at investing, is you invest in the co-founder, and because their thing is somehow making the world better versus better for them. And that's the disconnect I see. the disconnect or the connection. You're like, oh, wow, that's a good idea for 5 people, and the other 6.95 billion aren't going to care. That's probably not a great business idea.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you have either where you're on the downside of the curve, so everybody knows about it. I'm just going to differentiate myself. Or are you at the top of the curve, the middle of the curve, or at the very beginning where you know what, it's going to take a lot more time to get up that hill than it does on the downside
Right.
of it.
Right. Yeah, and I'll just add to that too is what's ahead of you on the curve in terms of competition. If you want to create a CRM from scratch right now, that's going to be a pretty challenging thing to get enterprise customers to sign up with you. And there's already 5 or 6 good things in the marketplace. Can you do it? Of course. Just knowing that when you start, and that's why the why is like you see a gap in that, you see a gap there. So I think that's really important.
So isn't competition healthy to know that the market is out there? And if you can niche down with your brand to maybe offer a little something else, isn't there a strategy that involves that as well?
Oh, absolutely. So if you've got, if you're in a category that is more of a horizontal category and you can figure out and you see this in the, all 3 of us do coaching work. You can see this in the coaching space. There's all sorts of new products and services that are specifically for coaches, and like some are for this type of coach, some are for that type of coach. So if you can and this goes into the personal branding, is who are you talking to and what's their problem that you're trying to solve? Absolutely, Paul. I think relating it back to the CRM thing, like a HubSpot or a Salesforce is a great example. You can buy Salesforce out of the box. Most people don't. They buy it and then they have specific things that fit into pharmaceutical vertical, entertainment vertical, software vertical. So then it's like you get the platform. So again, Salesforce also has the almost unlimited resources to do that sort of thing. So I think if we're talking about people starting businesses, like you want to niche down and figure out what's the problem that's not being solved by what's currently out there. And if you do, you have an idea. If you're like, hey, I wanted to be a CRM, I think most of those problems have been solved for the general population. So it's getting really clear about that.
Well, and when you bring up CRM, it's interesting you do that, because I looked into creating a CRM about 3 or 4 years ago, because there wasn't anything out there that did what I thought needed to happen. And I know at least 3 years ago, 60% of CRMs that were purchased were never used.
Right.
And I think that's because they probably make it a little bit more technical than the average person can kind of deal with. So all of a sudden, I think I have the next best CRM. But unless you test it, are you really just throwing good money after bad?
Yeah. Well, what was it that had you decide not to do it, Glenn?
I don't understand the language of the coding, so I don't know if someone's BSing me. In websites, you can try and say everything you want to me as a developer. I can say, no, do it this way. I don't understand the language there. So if I don't understand it, how do I manage it?
Yeah. The thing that hit me with what you just shared is the idea that you niche down and then you build a bunch of stuff for your niche or what you think is your niche. And then your niche goes, yeah, that's like 2% of what we need. What we actually need is already out of the box for either cheaper or much more scalable already there.
Well, and not to bore people with software, but that's why most of them build it in PHP, because you can build that for $5,000 to $15,000, where a decent stack's going to cost you $50 to $100. So you want to learn what you don't know at a lesser value. Understand you're going to throw it away. So that's why some of those things are kind of frustrating.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's probably a good idea you didn't go into the CRM business.
Yeah.
So, Jason, just for those of our viewers who did not get an opportunity to see you on Blabbit several months ago, explain to them what it is you do as a leadership and performance coach. I know you explained that you work with startups and entrepreneurs. Like all of us as coaches, we work with a wide range of people, but what is the majority for you?
The majority of the people I work with?
Yeah. What it's mostly startups, but in other words, when you say the word performance, what does that mean to you, and what does that mean to your clients?
Yes. So I think this would be not performance like the sort of things that you're doing. I mean, it can be incorporated in there, but it's not performance like you're performing. It's how do you increase your, what are you doing to increase your performance in terms of getting things done, your performance as a leader, your performance as a co-founder I see it as it's kind of all encompassing. at the end of the day, it's a fancy way of saying I help people be better at what they do. That's really what it comes down to. And for some people, that's being more agile. For some people, that's being less of a perfectionist. For some people, that's being more empathetic. For other people, it's being less empathetic. So it's just a matter of like, what's the best? And the question I always ask my clients in the very first session, once we start working together, is, hey, what's the gap between where you are now and where you want to be with your leadership? And then we have something to coach to for the next 4 months or 6 months or whatever it is. And being able to tie back to like, hey, what is that thing? How's it going? How are you feeling about the things laid out? And what's changed as you've started to work on some of the things like, hey, either new things have come up or you realize, hey, I'm already a really empathetic leader. What I actually need to work on is being less empathetic and be able to have a tough conversation and do it flat and do it up front as opposed to caretaking my employees or things like that.
Right. So does a lot of it have to do, it sounds like a lot of it has to do in many cases with delegation, with being able to compartmentalize things. And also when you're describing the various areas that you touch on, I mean, going from where you are now to where you want to be, it sounds like you also work with a lot of coaches who are in particular niches as well. Do you find that having a big network of professionals is a good thing for you because of the resources you have at your fingertips to offer to your clients?
Yeah. So just to be clear, I don't, I know a lot of coaches. I don't use them in my business I don't like have a stable of coach that I use. If you work with me, you work with me for the time being. That's a whole different conversation about scaling. But the other side of my business, the personal brand strategy work that I do at Brand Builders Group, we do have a lot of coaches in there. So I do work with other coaches, not coaching them on the performance and leadership part, but actually what's their unique proposition in the world? What's the thing? What kind of content do they want to create? What do they want to do to set themselves apart and become a personal brand out in the space? So that's a different part of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I would think a lot of times those are going to overlap a little bit as far as a brand and what you're doing to help coaching people. Because if you don't have your professional brand within your organization, your professional brand outside your organization, so that people they only don't know what you do, but how do you do it? What sets yourself apart and stuff like that. So do you find that kind of encompasses a little bit more when you're trying to mentor someone or coach somebody to help them develop that brand or perception of themselves?
Yeah, it's an interesting question that, yes. And as I'm doing coaching work, like let's say, Glenn, you're my client, my one-on-one client, and you say, hey, I want to work on my personal brand. I would coach you on that. And what I mean by coaching is I don't know how to tell you how to do it. We would work on that together. The Brand Builders is a much more facilitative process. Hey, I've got this process. Phase 1 is this, phase 2 is this, phase 3 is this. And we're going to work through that together. So for example, at Brand Builders, our clients, we generally work with them for at least a year because most of our clients want to do big things, either write a book, they want to start a popular podcast, they want to be on stages, they want to grow their business from 6 to 7 figures. So in that case, it's a much more facilitated process based on here's the way to do it. If I'm working with you one-on-one in my own business, I actually don't usually know how to do it, to be quite frank. And in coaching, we don't necessarily know how to do it. Paul probably doesn't know exactly how to make me the best public speaker, but he can see some things, but then he can ask me. Like Paul, when you're coaching people, you're not going to come in and say, do these 25 things and you're going to be the best speaker in the world. You're going to say, hey, I've got some tips or I've got some things for you. And what's the thing that's coming up for you that has you have a lack of confidence? And that's going to be a different answer for me than it would be for Glenn. So it's actually two different things.
All right. Well, the Brand Builders is, for me at least, knowing you for as long as I have, it's a new development.
It is a new development.
I found out about it just a couple of weeks ago where you announced it. And I understand the need sometimes before something is fully put in place, to keep it under wraps. But tell us a little bit about the process of taking on the added responsibility of this role, along with still taking care of all the clients that you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. What does that balancing act feel like? And then I'm going to ask you about another piece of the balancing act, but let's just work on Brand Builders.
Yeah. Balancing act. I was just on a call where that was a topic for me, and I was not coaching somebody. I was on the receiving end of balance. So so Brand Builders Group, just to give you a little perspective on what it actually is, it's a company started by Rory and AJ Vaden. Rory's a best-selling author, National Hall of Fame speaker, and him and his wife and he built a really big personal brand. If you look him up, he's a keynote guy, $30,000-$40,000 a speech. He's written two best-selling books. And so they decided to build a personal brand company based on the work they did for Rory that had him be quite famous in the space he's in. And so Brand Builders is a company that has a very, what I would say is it's a pretty unique process and a really comprehensive process to have people who want to build a personal brand. And it's a how-to for the most part. Here's the things you do. Here's the way, here's the questions we're going to ask you. We're going to step you through this. And at the end of this, you're going to come out with it's going to be much more clear how you market, much more clear where you need to market to. If you want to do a podcast, what should your podcast be about? What should you talk about? Who are the people you want to have on? If you want to be a keynote speaker, what are your keynotes going to be about? If you want to be an author, what's your book title going to be? And how does this all align to make Paul or Glen's brand that all feels cohesive to all of us out here? Mm-hmm. And the way I actually found out about Brand Builders is I was a client for a year, and the work that I did was amazing. And then when they said, hey, we're looking for strategists. And I said, oh, what does that look like? And they said, oh, you just tell us how many hours a month you want, and we give those to you, because we have almost 400 clients now at Brand Builders. And I said, that sounds amazing, because I love the work. I love the process, and I get to name my capacity. So in terms of the balance, I actually get to choose how much of that work I do, because I'm on contract with them. It's not I don't work for them as a W-2. I'm a independent contractor. So that's the balance of it. And I say, hey, like, this month, I think I want to do 20 hours of this work. Great, here's 20 hours for you. Or, hey, this month I want to do 40 hours. I have a client who's leaving, and I haven't replaced them yet. So that's how I balance that out. It's kind of the perfect scenario for somebody who trades time for money, which is me. Mm-hmm. So that's how the balance there works.
Okay. So
I'm scared for the next question.
Here's the next question. I know Glenn's waiting. He said, wait, Paul, I think you said there was another question. Well,
yeah, I'm scared.
Yes. And there is. No. This is a simple one. But you have a larger family now.
I do.
Yes. So how is that going?
Yeah. When was I last on? I didn't look. When was that?
I think that you and your wife were expecting.
We were expecting, so that would have been
November 20th.
Oh, we had just had a baby. Yeah, so we had
okay. All right. So yeah, we didn't want to overwhelm you with questions about it then. But now that it's kind of settled in and everybody has found their footing, how is everybody doing, Jason?
Everybody is doing really well. So because our family is crazy, and I mean that in the best way, and Paul, because we're friends on social, you probably see this. We added a puppy to the mix at the end of February.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
We just decided, why not have a 5-year-old, a newborn, and then let's just add a puppy to it.
Sure.
The good news is everybody's doing extremely well, and the puppy was actually the best decision we could have ever made, because her and our son's name is Charlie. They relate to each other as litter mates. So even this morning as I was leaving for work, Charlie was actually, and the dog's name is Sunny. He literally climbs on her as she lays on the ground, and she loves it. And she will come and lick his face and swat him with her tail and play with him, and he loves it. So there's it's like they're like litter mates. So everybody's doing really well. The family's doing well. Thanks for asking. Regarding the balance, it is interesting because my wife was off when we last talked. My wife was off of work. She was off from the end of September until the middle of May. She has a phenomenal company that she works for, is amazing maternity policy. She's back at work now. So that's where the balance has been interesting, is she had a lot of time off. She's back at work now. So now it's her time is not quite as free, which means when I get home, there's more things that I want to help with and do. But before it was, she was already there with Charlie. So balance is always a thing that we're looking at, struggling with sometimes. Sometimes it feels imbalanced. I guess we're humans with a busy 2 kids and a dog, and it's kind of how it's going. But we're making it all work, and they're it's a good crew. It's a good crew. I'll put it that way.
Nice. Good to hear.
Well, balance, when you're talking about that, brings another question to me that I've dealt with entrepreneurs for years, and that's the balance of working in their business versus on their business. So what are you seeing currently with business owners, CEOs, whatever, kind of managers, whatever, to get them a balance of growing and managing their current business?
This is a very timely question. I had a client yesterday who had set some goals, and we were going through the goals together. And I reflected to this person that none of the goals had a timeline on them. So they were like, do this thing with no time attached to it. So if you're looking at SMART goals, I call them SMART goals. They're like, these are great, and there's no time attached to any of these. And then I asked him that. I said, so how much of this is working in the business versus, I didn't say it in the way you said it, but what about this? Where's the vision here? Because a lot of these are pretty tactical things, and it's a small company of 6 people. And we ended up coaching and talking about what this is all for, and what it's all for is for his family and for freedom. It's kind of the thing, like what's the why? Mm-hmm. And we got to a point where he said, man, like I need to take a look through the lens of like, how do these things serve me being able to leave a legacy business and actually not be there every day working in the business. He's a big vision guy. He loves the vision stuff. He's brilliant at that. He doesn't love all the in the business stuff. So like, what's the thing that him and I can do and with his team to set him up to actually do the things he's best at? And then like, which is working on the business, the working in the business. How do you, I don't think he ever wants to, he doesn't want to leave that. And I would never suggest that an entrepreneur says, I'm not working in the business, but relating it to like, what's the thing that really fills you up that's going to have you excited to spend this time? Because it's going to take a lot of time versus what's the thing that you're dreading doing. So we're working on that right now. So that's for him, the balance is not how much time do I spend at home? How much time do I spend in the office? It's what do I spend my time doing that either builds me up and excites me or feels like a drag? Because the one thing that I think we're all entrepreneurs too. If you're doing work that feels like a drag, you're not going to do it for that long. Because you're going to go, I'm going to find a job, or I'm going to go work for somebody else. I don't think most of us who work for ourselves ever want to do work that we don't like doing. And if you do, I'd say, why don't you just go work for somebody else and do something that get paid? You can get paid a lot of places to do work you don't like to do, and you have an easy paycheck. That's the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like working. I do like working in the business, but I do like the sound of freeing up more time and having others do some of the things that I don't necessarily like as much.
Yeah, like so for Paul, for you, for example, knowing a little bit about your business, you love being with your clients and working on their big. Hey, we're pitching to the board next week, and I need you. I really want the confidence that you do that all day would be my guess. I would meet with my clients all day. It's the stuff on the side, like I said, I've never seen a spreadsheet I liked, or if you talk about financial stuff, like I don't want to spend my time doing it. I do it. I have a VA do some of it. I do some of it, but I want to spend as little time there and as much time with the things I enjoy doing, because that's going to have me excited for the next day. So this is, I think, the never-ending struggle and plight of entrepreneurship is you kind of have to do it all when you start. So you just don't have enough resources. But then you also get to learn a lot about yourself. I mean, I came from big companies at a young age, and then when a little bit older, I went to startups where I had a little bit more freedom to design what I want. But man, my first 2 jobs out of college, I worked at 2 telecoms. They hand you your laptop and say, "Here's your job description, go do it." And I didn't have to worry about anything besides my specific job description, nothing at all. And now my job description is, like all this, like mop the floors, wash the dishes, coach clients, figure out the next, working on the business, working in the business, all of it. So it's an interesting journey. I think it's something that every entrepreneur goes through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of my first managerial positions, my boss called it chief chef and bottle wash.
Totally. Yeah. Who else is going to do it? Nobody. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In my case, it was chief cook and bottle washer, because I'm not that talented with food. But
I'm probably more the cook than the chef.
The cook. As well. Yeah. So it really sounds to me, Jason, like you're talking about clarity. And Glenn, that's been obviously it's been a topic on many, many, many Blabbits. So I do like to bring it back to some of our listeners may not be in a position or may not be ready to take a sort of brand builder's plunge, making a year-long commitment. But what would be your grassroots advice, just good things to do in terms of your brand, leveraging social media, getting things in alignment? I don't know. Are there some basic ABCs? I know it's very detailed and I'm asking a loaded question, but whatever you can give would be great.
I've got something a little more elevated for you. And this is something that I made the mistake with, and I think most personal brands make the mistake with, is there is a million people that will tell you on how to run Facebook ads, how to run Instagram ads, how to start a podcast, how to start a show.
Yes.
I'm not referring to this show, by the way, because it's very clear what you do here. And they go, okay, so I want to be a personal brand. So what am I going to do? I'm going to set up a podcast. I'm going to start putting content on Instagram. I'm going to start doing this, start doing that. And then you say, well, what's your one word problem that you solve? What's the thing that makes you unique? And people are like, I have no idea. So their content just ends up being like all that. So at Brand Builders specifically, we get a lot of clients like that, and it's really normal. We normalize it. Hey, this is really normal. You get excited, especially new entrepreneurs that want to. Like I have a new client with Brand Builders. He's in the like a psychedelic space, and he's got a ton of ideas. And then at Brand Builders, we actually go through a format where we really hone that in. So like narrowing down who's your ideal client. And most people's ideal client when they start is themselves, which is why they do it in the first place. And that ended up being him. So you get your avatar, you get like, hey, what's the thing that makes you unique? And usually it's something about you, not something about what you're selling, because you can buy almost anything now. And the mistake that I see, or the advice I would give if somebody's out there and wants to start a personal brand, is get really clear about who you are, what you do, and build content that aligns to that versus building a bunch of content hoping that something sticks. Mm-hmm. And so like at Brand Builders, we call that, it's actually phase 1 brand DNA is what that module is called. And that's all we do is get really clear about that. If you read a book, what would be your book title? If you wanted to do a podcast, what would be your podcast title? And get aligned with that. And then you go, oh man, you can create a ton of great content with an aligned brand. You can create a ton of content with no alignment, and people are going to go, I don't know what you do, so forget it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what I would say. Just get really clear about that.
Okay, so here's a little exercise that I'd like to try.
I love it.
And this is, again, we have recurring topics, and I don't mind having recurring topics because, as anybody who's a coach, teacher, or a trainer knows, you've got to, drill into it quite a few times to make it stick. So I'm okay with bringing this up once again, Glenn. And you know what, Jason, I might have even brought this up the first time you were on the show.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me like the old balance that I always talk about, what you're known for and what you're known as. Okay?
That's right. Yeah.
What we're known as is pretty much how we described ourselves in our opening bios. I'll take myself, for example. I'm known as a public speaking coach. I'm known as a presentation expert. But what am I known for? And I love what you said just before, Jason, about just drill it down to one word, which can be really hard. I normally don't task anybody with doing this. I usually use a phrase, or my term, a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
We keep it nice and short and sweet. I was just, as you were describing clarity, I said, what would be my one word? My one word. And for me, I'm known for confidence.
I was just going to say, I'll bet you $1,000 it's confidence.
Yeah.
And that's
not my confidence.
Right.
It's empowering people with confidence. In other words, I'm known for empowering people with confidence, but I'll take the one word, confidence, because that's what people want.
Paul, since we're doing a little exercise, if I could turn this around on you a little bit, the Brand Builders way we do this is great. So confidence is the output that your clients get by working with you. What's the problem they have?
The problem is that they don't have clarity. They have uncertainty about what to talk about and how to talk about it.
Yeah. So like if we connected this equation, the way we do it at Brand Builders is, let's take the one word there of uncertainty. So clients come and find Paul because they're uncertain about something, likely to do with their speaking or performance or other things. What's the thing that you uniquely bring that at the end of the day equals confidence? Because people will pay you to get confidence.
I help them discover the stories they already possess.
Yeah. So the one word I hear there is it's a clarity. It's also discovery. This is the word I have for you. So this is what, and so going back to brand builders again, usually people can't do this, which is why you have a strategist when you come and be a client of brand builders, including myself. I hated this exercise because as the entrepreneurs are like, no, I want everybody to work with me. Like how many people you don't, but like, not only that, but like, I don't need 50 people to work with me. I need 10 people to work with me. And I have a great business. Same for you, I'm sure. Same for you, Glenn. So this is where also working on like abundance versus scarcity. If you're, what's the old marketing saying? I don't know if it's Zig Ziglar, but it's like, if you're everything to everybody, you're nobody to, if you're everybody to everybody, it's like everything to everybody, you end up being nobody. Versus Glenn's versus Glenn is known for this thing. Paul is known for this thing. Jason's known for this thing. People go, oh yeah, I need Paul. I don't need a public speaking coach. I need Paul. And that's at the end of the day what a personal brand is all about.
Right. Good clarification, as we might expect.
Yes, well, I'm also shamelessly using my brand builder's knowledge. So give all the credit for the process we have.
Oh, please. I'm famous for saying, you know what? I learned this earlier today and I'm teaching it to you now in the afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what are we if we're not conduits for knowledge and information and experience?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit more about building a brand because it's something that we talk about quite often. And it's something that I see a lot of marketers, and I say marketers should have been a 4-letter word, but it's not, try and tell people they're going to help them build a brand. But building a brand and the perception of a brand in 2021, I think is just, it's so vague. It's so many. If there were 500 shades of gray, it would be better. Because when I hear someone say, I'm going to build a brand, look at Apple, look at Starbucks. I tell them, you don't have an employee yet. So let's slow down. Let's look at something more achievable. And so in building a brand in this day and age, how would you define building your brand?
We talking personal branding?
For business.
It doesn't matter.
A brand new entrepreneur, a new business or starting a service business, whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to steal. This is so perfect. I'm going to steal this shamelessly. If anybody here knows who Jeff Goins is, I was actually at a mastermind with him earlier this week. He's a marketing genius. It's kind of like a Seth Godin type. He's a speaker, marketer. He wrote a couple best-selling books. And somebody asked him this. So Jeff, if you're listening, I'm pretty sure he's not going to see this, but I'll give Jeff credit for this. This is not me. Somebody asked him this specific question and said, because the mastermind I was in was all people who are personal brands, work for themselves, or generating this. And somebody said, like, how do you define it? And he said, the way I defined a personal brand and what it's useful for, it's a reflection back to the person who wants to maybe buy something from you. What do they see in you? So it was also, he was very clear. He goes, the thing with interesting about branding, whether it be a corporation, but really for personal branding it's just a brand. It's not the reality, but it's the thing that attracts you. But then once you're in with me or you're in with Paul or in with Glenn, there's a whole lot more there. So for me, it's the external persona that you put out to the world through your messaging, through your graphics, through, and then the way you deliver that is however you want to deliver that, usually through social and such, and shows like this and podcasts. And it's the thing that has people go, hey, like there's something here for me that makes me interested in learning more, because they're somehow connecting either through, in the case of Paul, you're just this damn handsome that people just want to be with him. But not all of us have that. Sorry, Paul, I had to call you out there. Or like, hey, there's something that Paul said to me. Like, I know, Paul, you do a lot of like videos. Hey, there's something that Paul said that really resonates with the struggle that I'm having with my speaking and attracts people. So it's like it's the outward persona that builds trust, is at the end of the day what Jeff said. It's the outward persona that builds enough trust that somebody goes, I got 100 options for a public speaking coach in New York City. I want Paul. Because I feel a connection, I feel trust with him. So that's the way that I look at it. And when, again, going back to brand builders, that's the thing we're looking for, is what's the thing that's going to make you unique? Because the other thing that with personal brands, the trust is built because it's you authentically. And I hear, Glenn, when you say like, I'm going to help you build a brand, there's so many marketers out there. They have some system that's going to put you into like a thing that's going to look like everybody else. That's not really, I mean, it's a brand, but it's going to be a brand that's going to look the same as everybody else, versus making it very unique to each person or each company, which has people go, oh yeah, this resonates for me. Because again, it doesn't need to resonate with everybody. It needs to resonate with a few people.
Well, it's funny that you say that. I had someone soliciting me last fall to help me rebrand my LinkedIn, and what it charged me thousands of dollars. And it was kind of funny because I saw what their LinkedIn looked like, and as they brought it up, they were actually working with one of my clients, and they were doing the same thing to that one as to theirs. And I'm like, well, I can copy and paste and change a little bit of verbiage and not spend a few $1,000s.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is where the upfront work comes in. For me, is having a session like to get clear, like, hey, what are we doing here? For Paul, if he was like, hey, my assertion would be, Paul, that you don't have a new client and go, all right, let's get working on your presentation. You're like, hey, what do you want to get out of this? What's the thing in the way? Actually getting clear about what it is that people actually want versus, hey, I want a better LinkedIn. And they're like, great, here's our 18-step process for doing that. And it's going to cost you $4,000. And then I just see, I get marketed on all the time too. And there's so many offerings that seem so cookie cutter, which works really well if you want to scale a business. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure what the result is for the client.
So I'd like to expound on that real quick, if you don't mind, Paul, because I have preached this for years. I call it a needs analysis. I've told salespeople for years, you have not earned the right to present something until you've learned about your clients' needs, wants, goals, anything like that. So I would ask this to each of you. When going into meeting with a new client, what's your process? What's the main things you're wanting to ask of them before you feel like you're qualified to provide a solution?
I'll go first. What I normally say is, what motivated you to reach out, and what do you have coming up almost immediately on the horizon? What's off in the future? And can you tell me about situations where you felt you were successful doing the things you want to do, but also tell me about some of the things that were not so successful? Again, I'm just listening to what their experience feels like, and then considering whether I have solutions that can match up. Usually I do. I'm amazed sometimes that I come up with the advice that I do, but seat of the pants.
Improv.
There you go. How about you, Jason?
I'm going to relate this to my performance and leadership business, because the brand builders business is not like that, because people already know they have a problem and they already have signed up. So they have a problem or they want something. I have one question that I ask a potential client. I say, what do you want me to know about you? Some people spend an hour, some people spend 5 minutes. And then I'll say, what do you want to know about me? Some people have a lot of questions. Some people have no questions. And then from there, it's pretty much as simple as, do you think I'm the right coach for you from a personality fit? Because coaching, I don't have to be the expert. That's more consulting work. I don't need to know every last way to solve every last one of their problems. And if somebody wants a consultant, I can refer them to a consultant. But most of them, they want to work with me because I'm not a consultant. And I'll actually that's the other thing I'll do in a potential client engagement, is I'll specify the difference and ask them what they actually want. They go, oh, I really want a consultant who's going to walk me through this process to get this thing. Great. I got somebody. I probably know somebody for you. I'll refer you. Most of the time, 95% of the time, like, hey, I want coaching because I wanted to explore this for myself. So that's the big difference for me. And then, what do you want me to know about you? And then from there, we can coach. What do you want to go from here? Some people say, hey, let's do a little coaching session. Great. Some people say, hey, I don't need anything. Let's work together. Some people say, hey, I need to go talk to 20 other people. I say, great. And that's it. My process is really simple.
Yeah. Well, I had a thought a few minutes back about the idea of being clear about your brand. Now, are you saying that, is there sort of a learning on the fly aspect to it? Because you can be very clear about what your brand is, but maybe your brand needs to be adjusted based on the way the rest of the world perceives it when you finally come out of the cocoon and you present. What happens there? What happens with the art of molding it into what the way that people want to hear it, or the solutions that people are looking for, and therefore an adjustment has to go on. I mean, that clarity can be something that you hold on to tightly because you want to get it so right, but it may have to be adjusted. So is there a testing of the water that goes on in something like, let's say, brand builders? When you say that's a year-long kind of a thing, are you slowly testing the water? Are you getting feedback? Are they asking their existing clients what it is that they want, what it is that they need that is not there, that needs to come into fruition? What's the balance there, Jason?
The answer to all that is yes. I am a firm believer. If you're not learning, you're not improvising, you're dying. So yes, brands are gonna I mean, you see corporate brands do this all the time too, reinvent themselves. Again, Jeff Goins called it debranding. So it's like you actually like, oh, and because he's a big name in his space and he wants to reinvent what he's doing. So he's like, I'm actually not going through a rebranding. I'm debranding what people know of me and coming back out with something new that he's known for. So yes, always going to be innovating. And you don't, even when you go through a process, you work with a strategist like myself, you go through brand builders, you don't know until you put it out there. And then that's the thing is I don't believe you can be attached to it and you be successful. You may nail it out. You may knock it out of the park. And like you said, Glenn, you do a lot of sales coaching. You can coach people, but people are going to naturally do what they're going to do. And that process may work perfectly for that product or the best salesperson on the planet. It may not work for it all. You have to be adaptable and you have to go, hey, what's working and what's not. So the process of brand building is there's definitely innovation. There's definitely taking a look at what's working, what's not. And I think the other like piece of advice I'd have for the audience is as you're doing this, the very best way to get this feedback is just ask the people who like you. Hey, Paul, I hired you to help me with my board with my pitch deck. We worked together for 3 months. Hey, Jason, would you mind telling me what it is that you got out of our time together and what it is that you liked about working with me? And most importantly, what is it that attracted you to me in the first place? And sometimes it's simple, like, hey, I know you from reputation. So then you can lean into the brand of like, wow, people who know Paul love Paul. Maybe it's that you're known for, you're the person who works best with the up and coming manager who wants to move into director level. And then you start to lean into those things because again, like the thing that most people have, myself included a lot, is the scarcity, not enough clients. But if we all went through and said, if I could give you my ideal client, and you went down to like their sex, their demographics, what they do, how much money they make, what's the thing that's going to have you be so excited about this client? We probably all know 50 of clients for each other if we actually did that. There's plenty of work out there. There's plenty of people who need our services. Mm-hmm. Most of us just having a scarcity mindset that, hey, I've got to stick with my marketing, stick with it. I will say the reverse of that though is you got to stick with it for a little bit and make small changes, because if you do it, when you're new, if you come out with a whole brand and you see people do this, sometimes you're like, this person's known for this thing. And then I see them 3 months later, they have like a completely different thing they're doing. They just haven't had enough time in the marketplace. So I would recommend you don't want to do a wholehearted shift, but you do want to be able to innovate and improvise from asking for feedback.
Well, I have a really good example of that just recently. Years ago, I wanted to really break into giving these public speaking skills to college students, college age individuals. And I think that I went about it in too big of a way. And so I just backed off from it. Yeah. But now this season, especially this summer, I have an enormous amount of college students who are getting ready for intern interviews. So all of a sudden, because of their need and because of what it is that I have, I'm able to teach the very people that I had wanted to teach in abundance, who I thought could really, really, really use this. Well, it turns out they can, but when they need it. So I'm happy with that.
Good market timing. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is your message may not resonate until something happens in the market.
Right.
Which sounds like that's exactly what happened for you. Yeah. Or you're marketing throughout the year and then you're building that brand trust. And then when the time is right, go, oh yeah, you know what? I do need some interview help. Oh, who's that guy? Oh, Paul. Yeah, Paul. Let me go talk to Paul. And then next thing you know, you've got a bunch of clients.
Yeah.
Well, and back to speaking about that, there's a reason why major brands do focus groups to find out what people are going to react and what they like and what they don't like. A lifetime ago, I worked for one of those phone books at the telco, and I had the biggest insurance in City A, and we just weren't getting the same percentage of phone calls as we were getting in City B. And so I pulled out the phone book one night at a table of 30-somethings. We were all having a refreshment or two and correcting the world's problems. And I said, what do you guys think about this? And one of our neighbors said, well, that's a snooty guy. I wouldn't call him. And I said, why? Well, he has a Mercedes car in there and a Cadillac Escalade. In here, we drive Hondas and Explorers. I changed the photographs out for the next year to a Honda Accord and a Ford Explorer. Our phone calls went up 15%.
Yeah. I used to work at a software company where we had a federal government side of the business. All those people selling there, they drove Fords or Chevys because they knew they could afford luxury European vehicles. But if you're pulling up to the Department of Commerce or the DOD and you're driving a foreign made vehicle, that's just not going to look good. So that's, again, like that's their personal brand, is like realizing that you want to be careful with those things because of what your audience is going to, the perception your audience is going to have.
Mhm.
Yeah. And this is where you see this is where the influencer thing comes in, right? Like, oh my God, this person has it all and they're driving these luxury vehicles and they're on yachts. And, like most people in the branding space, most people that I know that we would consider extremely successful, they don't post those things because they don't need to, because their brand is authentic. And then as you see them, it's real versus like, it's not about what they do, it's who they actually are. And so that's another thing we take a look at.
Well, and back to a comment you kind of made before, perception and reality. You can be dealing with contractors like that and drive up in a brand new Ford extended cab pickup that costs $68,000, or you can drive up in a Cadillac that costs $65,000. They'll have the perception of the Cadillac versus the pickup.
Yeah, as long as it's American made. Even if it isn't made in America, as long as it's sold by an American company, they're good.
It's like, wait a minute, who drives anymore?
Exactly.
Yes. So, Jason, in terms of, do you work with groups as well? Do you work with leadership teams? I know I have, and I know Glenn has, and I know it's kind of a ridiculous question, but tell us a little bit about that experience doing, you're very good at the one-on-one, and I know, and I've heard feedback from people, and they love what you're able to draw out of them and help them to discover. But what about working with groups? How does the dynamic change there? Are people as transparent? Are people as available in that situation? How do you get them to be?
Yeah, I'm trained in group coaching as well. So there's a few things that I hope will be useful to you and to the audience. And so yes, you're in a meeting, and let's take a sales team. You're in a sales training, and then the sales director walks in. If you don't think that the context of that meeting changes or that people are not going to be themselves, you're mistaken. So the first thing I recommend is if you're doing like either group coaching, trainings, facilitation, you remove the power dynamic. That's the very first thing. Not that the sales director he or she might be the best human on the planet, but having them in that room changes the dynamic, period. Mm-hmm. That's number one. So if you're doing things with a leadership team, like let's all have people that are peers in a room. That just makes it go a lot more. It's just a lot more vulnerable. Number two, and I'm stealing this from my friend Molly. Again, I like to give credit where credit. Molly Grisham's an amazing experiential facilitator. This came from our mastermind this week, and she did a training for us. She said, participating is an invitation, not an expectation. Meaning that, and I've been in a lot of corporate trainings where like you have to share and you have to be the person who has all the things. And the truth is, I'm not, but I might be the introvert who absorbs and likes to listen and likes to like process things. And I get the meat from this session or from this week-long training by going back to the hotel room and sitting and thinking about it. Or somebody more like me, an extrovert, I want to talk. I want to like express myself. I want to participate more in the training. So not having the idea that this is a pure democracy or it's like a socialist thing where everybody has to talk the same. And if you don't, then that person over there is not participating. So that's number two. And number three is you set it up at the beginning the intention, and that we're here together to build something in partnership. And it's okay to speak out if it doesn't feel that way. And this is something that I don't see often in corporate trainings, because trainings is usually, let me give you some expertise or some data or something you can use to do your job. Those are great. If you're talking more like facilitated learning or coaching, it's like, what do you all want to get out of it? That's the like, hey, what would you all like to get out of this session today? And have people tell you that, so that you can have a target that's generated by the people to keep them interested and keeps you on track as a facilitator or a coach, as opposed to, I'm here today to tell you how we're going to do these 25 things. And so that's, I think that's the major. So the tip I would have for people who do this work, and by the way, this works great if you're a manager and you have team meetings. Hey, what would you all like to get out of the meeting today? As opposed to like, I'm the boss and here's what we're going to do in this meeting today. And this also works great on one-on-ones as you're doing one-on-ones with your employees. Hey, Paul, like we meet once a week. What would you like to get out of our half hour today? As opposed to, hey, Paul, come on in and have this thing prepared because this is my time. And so again, this is the group thing, but also an individual thing, is having the people are much more engaged when you have them generate versus being told how it's going to go or what we're going to do.
Yeah. Well, I learned that firsthand. I can remember years and years and years ago being so concerned about being clear and offering value to my clients that I would have everything all lined up. And with one client, this is probably a decade ago, he turned to me in the last 10 minutes and said, could we do a little bit of work on the presentation I have in 2 days? And I went, what?
Yeah.
So I don't make that mistake. I don't make that mistake anymore. I literally say this. I learned my lesson. I said, this is what I have planned. This is right in the beginning. But please tell me what you had in mind for our work today, because I never want to be in that position again, because I basically did that client a disservice. I mean, not that what I had to teach him was wrong or inappropriate or just not applicable, but specifically, yes, we should have worked on that presentation.
Yeah, it's one thing I'll say in sessions. One, let's all check our ego at the door, and let's not afraid to be wrong. And so what I heard in what you're sharing, Paul, is your ego has you be like, it's an ego thing, and I do this too. Like, we have a thing that we want to get across because we're the brilliant experts, without checking in with other people. Like, what is it you'd like? So one of the I call it like the pro tip is the question that can change everything is, hey, what would support you right now?
Well, and the one thing that I thought about when you were talking about that sales meeting is, a lot of times you get large organizations, and this is our model. Everyone must do this, this, and this based on previous, results from X, Y, or Z. Mm-hmm. Instead of being intelligent to know that Jason may be our best salesperson and can sell the biggest thing, so he can contact 5 people a week and he has made his goals, where I might need to call 100 people a week. Paul might need to email 1,000 a week. And I was intelligent enough to learn beforehand that, you know what, as long as you're making your numbers, I really don't care. This may be the model that works for some. You never have one model that works for all.
Yeah, I see that. I'll just say that's seems to be becoming a quite outdated model of management, where there's a need for it in certain areas, but I think in sales, the model of this is the way we're going to run our sales process and everybody's going to do it the exact same way, and I'm going to treat you all the same way. It doesn't seem like those people in managerial roles last that long anymore, because the way you keep people motivated is by speaking their language, not the language you want. So that, again, like, to me, that's an ego thing, or a unwilling to give up that I know how to do it better. And you might not. And just to be open to that.
Right. It comes out of a place of trying to quantify things and also trying to streamline things for clarity's sake, I guess. So, I understand where it comes from, but I agree absolutely with you, Jason, that model is very quickly going out the door. Of course, the pendulum always swings. It's going to, we'll swing toward a more qualitative that may not get the results. So then we're going to have to figure out, just like the workplace, what is the hybrid model of all of that?
Yep, exactly. Yep. The whole thing is always be adapting, always be taking a look at what works, what doesn't. Be willing to let go of your ego and say, hey, like, this worked, this didn't work. I'm willing to try something different. And I was wrong, or I was half right.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of back to what you mentioned before, maybe you use a slight variation with your company. You rarely want to use a blinker.
I like that.
Okay, now as just one of my last questions for you, Jason, and that is, I'm always curious. You brought up the word curiosity, and it being a wonderful quality that I think we all embrace on some level. I'm always very curious about people's backgrounds in these virtual meetings. So I'm sure some of our audience is probably wondering what bridge is constituted by this, what is it? It's a four-piece. It's not a triplet or anything. It's a four-piece.
I'm going to give you the full view here.
Oh, it's the Brooklyn Bridge, is it not?
Yes, it is. So this is actually a series of 6 that goes this way and this way, but it doesn't fit on this wall. And I said, the thing that I like about this is it's either before 1971, I believe, or between 2001 and 2013, because there's no tower here at all, and it should be here.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you brought that up, because some people are like, hey, I really like your virtual background. I'm like, it's not virtual, it's a picture. And I've had some people say, hey, is that a window behind you? I'm like, I wish I had an office in the middle of the Brooklyn Bridge. It is not, but I can see where you can't see that it's the Brooklyn Bridge.
Right. I couldn't tell it in the view there. I mean, if you were looking through a window like that, you'd be collecting tolls.
I would be literally sitting in the bike lane in the Brooklyn Bridge. It's funny you bring this up. I get a lot of people that compliment or ask about it, and they really like it. And I just, I don't like a blank wall behind me, so I'm like, hey, let me put something up, and this is just the way it works in my office space. Yeah,
no, I love it. I love the look. I love the reality of the virtual space. There's an oxymoron for you, but I do like that. I like real stuff being around. Glenn too.
Yeah, cool. I want to know about Glenn's real quick. I want to know about what's the pink thing behind you? It looks like a
that pink thing is Louis the llama.
Louis the llama. My daughter would love that. She loves llamas.
Yes. Someone that I know about always says I need something color. And so I had a plant that was sitting over here that my wife told me I wasn't watering it enough about a year ago. And then all of a sudden it came in. She's like, it's dead. You watered it too much. I said, I need better instructions than this. So that's when Louis the llama was purchased. And he's been always in my background someplace for the last, 6, 7, 8 months.
I love it.
But is it true, Glenn, that you don't move him?
He moves himself.
Oh, that's amazing.
Now, every time I'm out of town, my better half decides that she wants to it's time to clean my office, and I come back and things are rearranged, but it's all good.
But she knows better anyway, so you're good.
Exactly.
That's right.
Awesome, Jason. So if anybody would like to contact you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram at Jason T. Frazell. I have a Facebook page. My website is just my name. It's at jasonfrazell.com. I have a podcast, Talking to Cool People with Jason Frazell. My friend Paul over here was on. We had an awesome conversation where I think we talked about some of these very things late last year. You can connect me there, and or just email me, Jason at jasonfrazell.com.
Cool.
Well, thank you for coming back on again. It was great speaking with you.
Yeah, it's great to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Good seeing you, man. Good luck with everyone.
We'll see you back next week. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.